Crypto Kids, welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be jumping into the price of Bitcoin, which yes, it hasn't been doing too much over the past couple of hours and days, but that's fine because today I want to focus more on the macro perspective. Yes, we talked about this moving average crossover and why that's not a great thing, but what's more important from my perspective at this current moment of time is the 250 SMAs. And on top of that, we have the bull and bear market support band, which I'm kind of taking influence by from Benjamin Cohen's video this morning. So props to him for mentioning this. And of course, the CME gap that is about to get filled, and we'll discuss whether it can fill or cannot fill. And finally, we'll get into Dogecoin because it did see a pretty significant rally yesterday night by approximately, let's see how much it went up by, 13%. Not bad at all, and this is because of X. So for all of that and much, much more, make sure to stay tuned until the end of today's video. Yes, I do have a Marvel poster, massive Marvel fan, but unfortunately after Tony Stark died, it's not the same. And if you are a Marvel fan, you would know. But guys, let's jump into it straight away. I have some breaking news about the Bitcoin spot ETFs and why it's actually looking pretty good. It's very good, as a matter of fact. And people are missing this. The total flows that we've been seeing into Bitcoin, the ETFs, have been crazy. And I wrote a tweet on this earlier this morning, and the total net inflows each day ranges from $625 million all the way to $33 million. And only day 3 and day 5 have been in the negative. Actually, no, it's not too worrying. The total sum of money flowing into these ETFs have been over $1 billion, including the outflows from GBTC, and the total Bitcoin collected, excluding Grayscale, is now sitting at 0.4% of the total Bitcoin supply. And imagine this is in less than a week of trading days. Think about it in months or even years, how much this number will exponentially rise. And with the total supply dropping after the halving, in terms of the total available Bitcoin being less on an average daily basis, we're going to have a supply shortage, whereas the demand is going to increase. It's just basic fundamental economics. And I'm not too sure exactly of all the technological intricacies of how the halving works and what's going to happen on the blockchain and why this sum kind of varies every single day. That's Da Vinci's forte, and maybe I'll make a video with him as we come closer towards the halving, explaining exactly why it's super significant. But all I do know is it's in almost less than 100 days. And we all know what happens to Bitcoin after the halving. We go in a parabolic, massive uptrend hitting new all-time highs. And I'm excited for that. And that's why I'm trying to buy up as much Bitcoin as possible if we ever see the $30,000 regions again. And if you are looking for a place to be buying Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, you can head over to the description of today's video and sign up to Bitflex using this link to get up to $88,888 worth in prizes and bonuses. So make sure to check it out. But ladies and gents, unfortunately I am sick, and I did predict it in the last video. That was a very good call. Yes, so apologies if I cough or sneeze within the video. That's not meant to happen. I'll try my best not to do it. But yes, I mean, the ETF flows are looking very, very healthy. And Bloomberg analyst Eric Balchunas suggests that the outflows from Grayscale are most likely not getting recycled back. And you may be thinking, okay, how is that bullish? Well, it's bullish because if it's not the money out of GBTC, if it's not going into like HODL or IBIT, the money coming in there is from new institutional investors. It's new capital going into Bitcoin ETFs. It's new entrants to the market. And that, to me, is more bullish than the money flowing out from GBTC flowing back in. Of course, that would be amazing, but according to Eric, it's mostly from the FTX arbitrage traders. That's what he mentioned as the discount is now. I think it's at a major discount. So GBTC is doing its own thing, and let it. It's not a big deal. Yes, maybe they are the second most Bitcoin holders in the world, but it's just a matter of supply and it's a matter of how much it's demanded, right? If people want to exit out, well then yes, GBTC will reduce their total Bitcoin supply. If this demand increases, and it may still increase because there's a discount, well then they will keep on buying Bitcoin. And that's just how the market works. But remember, these other ETFs are doing well, and it should be able to compensate in the long term. Grayscale isn't going to liquidate $30 or $25 billion in Bitcoin. That's not what happens. So don't be worried in that sense. Bitcoin will just hopefully keep on performing well after the halving. That's all of my hope that's focused on it right now. The ETFs it's there. We're getting institutional investment. It's a more mature market. That's over with. Now we focus on the halving. But ladies and gents, it's super important to keep in mind that nothing in this video is financial advice, just my own personal TA and opinions only. Always make sure to do your own research on the markets before trading or investing. That's super, super important. But for context, as a group of the nines, 1.2 billion in daily volume puts them in the top 1% of all ETFs, of course, with GBTC. But even if you single them out, FBTC and IBIT, which is a more accurate kind of summation of how the ETFs are doing, they're in the top 2%. So the ETF volumes that we're seeing put IBIT, BlackRock's ETF, and Fidelity's ETF in the top 2% of all global ETFs traded. And keep in mind, the average age for ETFs in the top 2% is like 14 years old. So we're right now competing with ETFs that have been on this leaderboard, but it's basically, it took them 14 years of maturity to reach there. And I think it's pretty wild as well to get in there in a week. And it's all looking amazing. We just need to keep our hopes up and ignore the noise and keep focusing on, well, researching more about Bitcoin, finding out more, because we can always learn something new every day. And I personally do as well. That's why I started reading a bunch of different books, basically in the banking sector, and looking into monetary policy and why Bitcoin kind of changes that and revolutionizes that. And I would recommend doing the same. Like, what was this book that I was reading called? I think it was the Mises Institute. That's a very good one to check out. And of course, if you haven't read the Bitcoin Standard, that's a very good place to start off by. But this dump, or if you want to call it dump, it's been expected, right? We did expect this back in 2017, once we had the CME launch, which was the first ever financial instrument which enabled institutional investors to get exposure into Bitcoin. But once that came around, Bitcoin, after the announcement, saw a 220% increase. But of course, yeah, we did see a dip. It's going to happen. It's expected. And these dumps are healthy because as higher the price of Bitcoin goes, the more likely it's going to have a more severe drawdown back. So the earlier we see it, the better it is. And we can go over into the halving cycles. Now, every single cycle, halving cycle, Bitcoin tends to see a retest back to these bull and bear market support bands, which I believe are composed of a 21 EMA. So yeah, 21 EMA and a 20-period SMA. And we can see here that this was the first halving in 2012. Bitcoin, just coming straight towards it, we saw a test back to this bull and bear market support bands, which gave us a decrease in price by approximately, so let's measure it from here, we dropped by 23%, right? So that was the first halving cycle. Then in the second halving cycle, exactly when it took place, or just a couple of weeks after it, we saw Bitcoin from its local top drop by, if we discard this wick here, we dropped by 27% and hitting these bull and bear market bands perfectly. And we can see on the halving before, yes, we did the exact same thing. Basically on the exact day of the launch, we had like a small top after this major crash in COVID, and we ended up retesting it, well, almost retesting it with a 15% decline. The market absorbed the dump beforehand in this situation in COVID. So I think the average basically comes to around 18%. And if we calculate how far we are from these bull and bear market support bands, I think it's going to come to around 18%. So look at that. No, not even 18%, like 15%. And that would be a lower drop than prior times. And if we come to the top band, that would take us to basically $36,700. If we drop to the second band, that would take us to 35.4K with a wick to potentially 34K. And I think these are pretty realistic predictions. And that's why I want to open a few more limit orders on Bitcoin just to DCA in as much as possible. So if I go over into Bitflex and we go to limit order, I want to put a order price of, first of all, $36,750. And if we get rid of that, we do USDT. I want to put in $500 with 15x leverage, so press confirm, boom, another limit order there, and I want to do a final limit order at, let's see, $35,450, so $35,450 with the same amount, USDT 500. But of course, these limit orders may change depending on how far the Bitcoin price goes down. We may edit it, add more margin if one of them gets triggered. So make sure to stay tuned until the end of today's, well, all of the videos actually in the future to not miss out on what happens here. And again, if you want to also trade Bitcoin, you can long Bitcoin, short Bitcoin, or even buy Bitcoin from spot. You can do that over on Bitflex using this link to get up to $88,000 in prizes and bonuses. So that sums up basically what I think may happen to Bitcoin. We can also have a look at the 50 and 200 MAs, which is super, super important too. And we can see here, historically speaking, also around the halving times, Bitcoin comes down and retests this 200 MA perfectly, actually. We see here, back in December 2018, this is not in the halving time, but we still do, after seeing a large move towards the upside, we test this 200 period moving average. And around the halving time, just before this was in the COVID crash, we kind of rebound from this 200 MA. So it's been pretty accurate in terms of giving us support and resistance. And that's why this time round, if we do see a continued drop, not finding support as a final resort, Bitcoin may come to this 31K area, which would of course be a legendary place, as I've explained in previous videos, to find support and then continue rallying after the halving. But with the limit orders, we're prepared for every scenario. I strongly disbelieve that Bitcoin will see below 30K. It would take a black swan event to do so, but that's just what my opinion is based off of the market factors and technical analysis that we're looking at here. And finally speaking, then I want to get into Dogecoin very quickly. We see that Bitcoin has a CME gap between the region of 39 point, well, it's at $39,500. And the reason why CME gaps are in Bitcoin not so relevant, but may still be, it's not so relevant because Bitcoin isn't majorly controlled by the CME. We have the ETFs, and of course we have Bitcoin on spot, which is the most amount of volume. That's kind of why the CME is a bit irrelevant. But granted, it does have some traction, right? The CMEs, it's nothing to ignore on a large basis. And that's why, yes, Bitcoin may close this gap at 39.5K, but the CMEs haven't been too accurate historically speaking. I mean, we still have like a CME gap at like 9K or something. But hey, this gap may definitely close. Of course, it would close if Bitcoin does see a drop from this $40,200 level below this orange box. This would definitely happen. And if it does, yeah, it would be filled. And the reason why these fills, it's based off of a mathematical equation or formula, psychological formula, which I forgot. It's called the efficiency something. Maybe I'll look into it for the next video. But yeah, that's just the CME that I wanted to point out. And finally, Dogecoin has rallied by 13.8%. Why has it done this? A very good question. Let's go into it very quickly. Now, I posted this 15 hours ago. So Doge integration incoming? Well, yeah, that is a question mark because for the first time, X launched an official X account called X Payments. Now, what we do know is that Elon Musk got, what was it called? Money transmitter licenses for X in 2 different states. And what that allows X to do is to basically carry out transactions on the platform. And it's been hinted multiple times by Elon himself. And yeah, it would just be the most suitable way to integrate payments to X by using Dogecoin. Even Grok himself. Maybe I can find that tweet. If I go down, I retweeted what the CEO of CryptoQuant mentioned. Here it is. So he asked Grok what would be the best cryptocurrency for Twitter, and Grok also mentions that it's Dogecoin. And I just think that it's very much possible. As you guys know, I've been accumulating Dogecoin on many days. Like, it's probably the biggest altcoin holding that I have other than Bitcoin, and I really do believe in it. But yeah, I mean, it's a fork of Litecoin, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's a proof of work mechanism, and it works very well. So Dogecoin, you know what? I think Dogecoin is here to stay. And the final thing to mention is that, well, we'll look into this as well. It's important for the macro sense in Bitcoin. The San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank president, Mary Daly, and by the way, there's, I think, 13 federal reserves in the US. So if you're confused on, wait, hold on, isn't it Jerome Powell? No, there's like 13 different federal reserves. On Friday said that she feels there's a lot of work left to do on bringing inflation back down to the Fed's 2% goal, and that it is premature to think that the interest rate cuts are around the corner. Now, this is scaring me. Why? Yes, we have an FOMC in the next 10 days. It's expected that the interest rates will remain the same. However, in March, there is an expectation. Wow. Okay, this is a massive change. So this was sitting at like 68% just a week ago. And I think after this, people are now saying, hold on, maybe they're not going to cut it. And if this doesn't cut, then technically we should be seeing a dump in the stock market. But we're just hitting new all-time highs. So the stock market is clearly being heavily manipulated. In the short term, this isn't necessarily as great for Bitcoin, as it incentivizes investors to keep their money in their bank and collecting a safe 5.25% or whatever, and not risk it into assets such as Bitcoin or the housing market. But in the long term, if they still keep interest rates high, then banks are going to go into trouble. And we know if banks go down, then Bitcoin goes up. That's kind of the rule of thumb. But okay, yeah, I'll mention this too. So this was also interesting. Now this is a different case. This is the Binance US case. The other one that we were talking about was Coinbase versus the SEC, but they're looking into the same things. So the court wants to also kind of find out if the securities laws are applicable onto altcoins. And then if we have a decision which is either conflicting or it's the exact same on both courts, then we'll have a clear like we'll be able to say, okay, altcoins are not securities or they are securities. And once this clarity comes, then we're either going to have a massive all-in altcoin season or they're going to go to zero. That's kind of what we're going to see. But I think it's looking good for altcoins. I think ones that offer staking themselves may not be looking too great. But if they don't offer staking, I think like XRP, we may see a lot of these altcoins not get classified as securities, and they're going to have to come up with a new system to identify if an asset class or an asset is a security or not. So a new revamped Howey system, or how we test. But until that day comes, we're just kind of waiting, and once it does arrive, we're either going to, as I said, have a massive altcoin season or see a lot of them go very low. Ladies and gents, that concludes today's video. That was a nice, chilled, and detailed one. So I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to smash up the like button. But now I'm going to just sleep and have some tea because I am very sick. But guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you very soon. Take care, everyone, and bye-bye.